Yo, what's up and welcome to the channel, the Shotgun Shogun, and today on the training grounds, I'm going to talk to you about why effect resist is the greatest stat in the entire freaking game, and why immunity is not as good in some situations. I really don't like immunity sets that much, and I'm going to tell you why I just love effect resist and why it always tilts me a little bit when I see people that get real salty over effect resist rolls. First off, we're going to talk about what effect resist is. As you can see up here on the screen, this is the official Epic7 stove answer. Basically, if you are going to inflict a debuff, right? Let's say you have a 70. Let me rewind this a little bit. First off, in order to inflict a debuff, right, you have a chance. Now, some abilities are, let's say, a 75% chance to provoke. That means, well, you have to get past that check first, right? Absolutely. Effect resist doesn't actually have anything to do with the initial debuff chance. But let's say for safety's sake here, for theoretical math's sake and explanation here, let's say it's 100% chance. And if the ability doesn't say 100% chance, it just says it does it, it's 100% chance to happen. So that takes that out of the equation right there. Now, the next thing that you have to do after all of that is in play, this is where effect resist comes into play, right? So you've got effectiveness and you've got effect resist. Now, effectiveness is obviously going to be your chance to inflict said debuff that you successfully inflicted. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Don't worry. We'll explain it here a little bit clearer. Okay, so if a debuff is attempted, its success is determined through the following calculation: 100% plus the attacker's effectiveness minus the target's effect resist. That means that if you have 0% effect resist, they have a 100% chance to inflict that debuff, except they don't because the value can't exceed 85%. Now, that's where you get the infamous 15% from. A lot of people, I'm sure you have heard, get really mad that there is the inherent 15% chance for a target to resist regardless of how much effectiveness that you have. In theory, you could have a 1 billion% effectiveness and you still only have 85% chance to land that debuff. Now, there are some abilities like Basar's S3 that if you soul burn it, it will ignore effect resist. It bypasses this check completely and just goes on to the target. Same with Chloe's Magic Nail. Anything that does indicate that it ignores effect resist is not beholden to this terrible 15%. Now, you might be like, wow, okay, cool. Thank you for telling me about effectiveness and how to land debuffs, but I thought this was about effect resist. Now, it is. Let's say that in this situation, you have stacked up 100% effect resist, 100% plus your other person's 0% effectiveness minus 100% means that they have a 0% chance to land a debuff on you. Now, there is no 15% the other way. If I stack 1 billion% effect resist, unless you soul burn or unless your skill specifically bypasses effect resist, you will never land a debuff on me. That's why characters with high base effect resist are very, very strong. Ruel's, Momos, things like that. So why do I think that effect resist is so good? In a debuff heavy meta with characters like Dizzy, any character that inflicts blind, defense break is very, very important in a lot of PvP and things along those lines. This is very important. Now, the one big thing you have to remember here is if you're going to go in on effect resist, it's kind of one of those all or nothing stats, right? Most debuffers are going to be running around 75 to 100% effectiveness, meaning that you need to match that, right? You need to at least have that much in effectiveness in order to bypass their ability to actually land debuffs on you. Now, obviously, you can get away with just a little bit, and this will help against characters that, like, let's say Charles, right, who's going to inflict an attack down on you. If they're not running any effectiveness on their gear, because maybe they're a DPS, maybe they're a support DPS, maybe they're, you know, a healer that has like the S1 bonk on Maid Chloe, they're not going to be running much in the way of effectiveness, so any effect resist is going to help you out quite a bit. Now, it's not going to, unless you have that 100%, you are not going to absolutely guarantee it. Now, why not 85%? Well, that's because theoretically, and I could be wrong here, but I do believe that there's still that chance, right? It doesn't just go boom, this is 85%. Now it might be, so you might just have to stack up to 85, but I feel like you still have a 15% chance in there somewhere if you do not go to 100%, right? So you would have a 15% chance. 100 plus 0 minus 85% would still be a 15% chance. So yeah, math wise, you still need 100% chance to negate that. Now, let's say you want to bypass that, right? You would only need to get to where you are 85% of above the effect resist of the unit that you are trying to inflict debuffs on. So let me hop back over here to my screen. That's myself. That is not the right one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna go over here. Now, one of the big things that you'll find, especially in like high RTA, high legend, is mystic metals in the shop. That's a really big thing that you're gonna find in there. That's not true in the slightest, and that's not what we're talking about here, but you will see a lot of people running their support very, very high effect resist, and I will tell you why that is. Now let me pull up my example right here. This is going to be my DJ Bassar. Now he is triple S. He's got 27% self imprint here. Most people aren't going to have that, but he has 248% effect resist. Now, unless you are a Bassar that is using your soul burn, you're not inflicting any debuffs on him. Like, just GG, homie. You are not going to ever push him back. You're not going to do anything unless you bypass that through a soul burn or through a skill. Now, the reason why I do this is because he's going to cleanse and push forward and put debuff immunity on, right? So I want him, of all people, to not get locked down because he's very core to supporting my team and cleansing those debuffs. You'll also find this on, you know, characters like Maid Chloe. I do have only 95 on her right now. I need to move some gear around. You also have it on Ruel's. I don't have one, or I would show you. I got 133 on my DN because I don't want these characters to get locked down, because they can cleanse, they can heal, they can support my other units. Now, additionally, I do have it on units like my Dizzy, for example, right? I got 136 effect resist on her, and that's because I don't want her to get locked down. It's her job to lock other people down. So that is why on support characters that I don't really require a ton of DPS on, I like to run effect resist, because immunity is one turn and then it is a dead two-piece set. Now, it does help in that very initial turn, right? But if you are running effect resist, you are effectively running a immunity set, theoretically, right? Now, some people will be like, well, you know, what about if you get a Bassar, right? Well, Bassar is going to strip your immunity anyways. So yeah, of course, Bassar is going to bypass your effect resist as well. That's just something that you have to deal with. That's why I have my my DJ Bassar is like 218. That way, even if he does get pushed back a little bit, he's gonna still get up there near the front, and he's going to be able to cleanse, push forward so that we get our turns back, well, our CR turn back, and then go from there. Now, let's say you have a Assassin Sid, right, that's trying to lock my DJ Bassard down. Now, your Assassin Sid is super fast, maybe doesn't have the most damage in the world, but you use him to silence, push back, and burn souls. Well, you're not going to push him back because, well, you're not going to be able to inflict silence or anything like that. Now, you might be able to kill him with an Assassin Collie. Don't get me wrong. He's not the tankiest thing in the entire world. I need to fix that. We will one of these days. But you are going to have a hard time with your Assassin Collies by CCing him, locking him down. You're not going to be able to land any sort of defense breaks, silences, control, anything on him throughout the entire match without obviously burning something that is going to bypass this. Now, this is really, really important because you have basically an immunity set for the entire rest of the game now, or entire rest of the match. Now, it does kind of help sometimes early on, and it does help with DPS units, right? So a lot of times you're going to find that ML Kens are going to run with, you know, 2-piece immunity because otherwise you're going to have a bad time, right? So if they don't bring some sort of stripper, which isn't very often, especially like really high, you're going to have your Fliticas, you're going to have your Alencias, you're going to have your Bassars, you're going to have your Falconeer Quarries, Hirado sometimes, Sage Ball. There's a lot of ways to strip buffs, right? And I feel like when you can just strip these buffs away, it makes immunity sets not as usable. Even a violin can just eat through immunity, right? However, if you stack effect resist, you are going to not have that happen unless they come, like I said before, with like 200 effectiveness. They are not going to remove any of your buffs. They're not going to be able to push you back. They're not going to be able to CC you. You are just going to be free and clear from everything. Now, you don't want to do this too much on your DPS, right? Because you do have to sacrifice a lot of stats in order to stack up the amount of effect resist that you need. However, if you do, let's say, get a piece of gear, let's say your arena set rolled and you're like, oh my goodness, oh, this piece rolled all into effect resist. That's not always a bad thing because any amount of effect resist does help you. Now, if it's not 100%, it might as well be 0%, right? But effect resist is very, very good. And I see a lot of people out there that have these pieces of gear that just roll like 50% effect resist. You know, you'll see something like this where it's like 45% effect resist and somebody will post it up on Reddit and be like, oh my God, F in the chat, boys, for this piece of gear that I was hoping would be something else, but it's effect resist. I want you to change your mindset on those pieces of gear because they are very important. Almost any gear that rolls all into one stat is usable by somebody somewhere. And actually, I really do prefer when they roll all into one stat because that means that I can just put that there and I have flexibility in all of my other stats. But that is a whole completely different topic. I just wanted to show you guys a bit about effectiveness and explain it. Now, that's also one of the reasons why on your debuffers, right, you are going to want to have effectiveness. So I have 107% effectiveness on my Dizzy to overcome people who are running 100+% effect resist, because you will have that on your supporters, on your tanks. Same with anybody else that I just really, really need to lock down. I think my Falconeer Quarry has a decent amount of effectiveness. Yeah, she's actually got 168 because I need her to land that bird on pretty much anybody. So don't overlook these pieces of gear. Hit sets are good if you have these units, right? So when you see a piece of gear, you need to look at it holistically. It might not be the best piece of gear for who you are building right this second, but it might be phenomenal for somebody else, right? But anyways, that's my intro into why I think that effect resist is one of the most underrated stats in the entire game, and why immunity sets are hot garbage. I also just don't like farming A13. Anyways, I hope you guys did find this helpful. If you did, as always, if you're not yet, subscribe to the channel, share this out, like, hit the bell notification, comment down below on things that you would like me to cover and explain, and I will try to do it at some point in the future. And share this out. I always do appreciate it, because you're going to find somebody on Reddit, you're going to find somebody on Facebook that's just going to post this, and it's just going to be triggering. And you can just be like, look, no, man, flat stats are good. There's another video for that. Effect resist is good. Just get good, kid. Get good, kid. I'll catch you on the next training grounds. Take it easy, homies. Peace.
Cracky.